All right, Scott, I have a question for the episode.
Excellent.
Yes. So, in a few weeks, we will be making a journey to our beloved Walt Disney World so
We
that
will.
you can see it all decorated for the holidays for the first time ever. So excited about this. It's going to be epic.
Yes.
My question to you, oh first timer, is do you have in mind a specific souvenir or experience that you want to have or take part in to commemorate the time?
I'm going to stick with what we've been saying for a while, that this trip is more about experience over stuff for me. So I don't know that I've thought too much about a souvenir, but we'll probably pick up a little Christmas ornament or something like that just to commemorate and that kind of thing. And we love Christmas ornaments that we can throw up on the tree and that kind of thing. I think the first thing that popped into my head is the Jingle Cruise.
Okay.
Just to hear how the jokes change for it being Christmas time. And I know that's not a Christmas party exclusive, but it's the Jingle Cruise changes and it's all decorated, but I don't know if the jokes change.
Mm-hmm.
If they're more holiday themed bad jokes and that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I think that's an experience that, again, it's something I've not done before, so I'm really looking forward to that. How about you? What are you looking forward to, or do you think we need to buy?
I like you am kind of in that whole experience over stuff mode, and I think we've kind of made that decision together. And I think it's fabulous because we don't need anything else. I'm excited to see the Living with the Land greenhouses all decked out for the
Oh yeah, I
holidays.
forgot about that.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hmm.
I just think seeing it all decked out for the holidays is just going to be super cool.
It's
Like
so stunning.
everywhere we go, it's going to be decked out for the holidays, and I should have said some of the treats and that kind of thing from the Christmas party, because I think that's going to be a hoot. And the cookie stroll at Epcot, that kind of thing might be kind of fun.
And
Not
then
going to be able to do it all.
there's the Christmas tree stroll at Disney Springs.
Yeah, are we even going to have time to do any of that?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. We
we'll
do
just
have a
have
couple
to,
free evenings, so
yeah,
we'll have to
maybe
see.
go do dinner and do the Christmas tree stroll and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's the thing, even at Christmas time, this is trip planning a little bit, but you cannot do it all.
No. So don't even try.
Right. Prioritize the things that you absolutely have to do.
Hmm.
Like the Christmas tree stroll, meh. There's probably a couple of the cookies that I want to find in Epcot, but I don't know that I need to go through and try all the cookies from the cookie stroll. I think there's a couple of treats that I want from the Christmas party, probably not everything from the Christmas party. I think that's what we're going to have to do between now and when we leave, is spend some time figuring out what our non-negotiables are.
Hmm.
So we know that we hit those so we don't leave disappointed. Not that we would.
Hi, I'm Scott.
I'm Candice.
I'm Lacey.
And I'm Lariah.
Grab a drink and come hang with us at the Hangar Bar.
Okay, Candice.
Yes.
Today, we are going to talk about the evolution of Disney rides and attractions.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is that we know that over time, things change, right?
Yes.
And we all handle change just a little bit differently. So I'm interested in exploring why we fear some change but not others. And we're going to explore that through looking at some different rides and attractions and sort of the changes that they've made.
Okay.
And I think what we'll do is we'll just go down. I have a list of rides and how they've changed. We'll go through each one of those, spend a little bit of time on it, and then at the end we'll come back and talk about maybe other things that have changed that I didn't bring up. Sound fair?
Sure.
Okay. So let's start with Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
Or Caribbean, however you want to say it. Either way is correct. I probably prefer Pirates of the Caribbean when I'm talking about the attraction. No, I like Pirates of the Caribbean for the attraction. I go swimming in the Caribbean Sea.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I prefer. That was completely off subject and totally not Disney related, but
it got you in the right frame of mind.
right, exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So let's talk a little bit about Pirates. It originally opened in Disneyland in 1967.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the last attractions Walt Disney had direct input on.
Yes.
The ride immerses guests in a world of pirate lore with intricate animatronics and memorable scenes throughout. The dog holding the keys, the cannon fire at the big ship, lots of different things, different scenes. The auction, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the updates that have been made to that over the years. Scenes have been adjusted to reflect more modern values. You just talked about the auction scene.
Yes.
So let's talk about that for just a minute. What change did they make and what did we think of that?
So the first time that I was ever able to experience pirates, the auction scene was an auction where they were auctioning off women.
Yeah, a redheaded wench, right?
Yes. There were other women that were tied up in ropes behind her.
Right.
But she was very voluptuous, very beautiful, very, like, you knew she was going to go for a lot of money.
Right.
And that the change that they've made is now that they have turned Red, which is her name, and it's Redd,
Right.
into a pirate herself. So she is a buccaneer, and there's no auction anymore. It's just she's standing there and says a couple of things.
I'm trying to remember what she says. Are they selling chickens? There's something that they're doing there.
Yeah, but it's not
like an auction of people. They're buying something,
some rum,
or
maybe.
yeah. We'll figure it out when we go on the attraction here in a few weeks, because I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, that has been one of the big changes, just kind of keeping up with. It's probably not appropriate to sell women anymore. It wasn't in the 60s either. Right. Let's not sell people. It wasn't appropriate in the 60s, but
it's part of history.
Right. And that's, I wonder, let's talk about that before we talk about another change that they did to that ride, that attraction/ride. When do we stop saying we have to get rid of things that are kind of historically accurate in the name of modern sensibility?
I think that's a good question, and I think we could discuss that alone as a topic
Right.
for an episode for a number of things in the Disney universe, if you want to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And that's from things that they show on Disney Plus to things they don't show on Disney Plus.
Yep.
To things in their catalog, to attractions, to merchandise, to all of the things.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I don't want anybody listening to this to get me wrong. I think we have progressed as a society the way we should, right? From a social perspective, we have improved a ton from where we were 150 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago. The world has gotten to be a better place. Sometimes it may not feel like it, but we're not selling people anymore. Women are allowed in the workforce. They're allowed to get credit cards. Like, we are progressing. Sometimes progress is 2 steps forward, 1 step back,
Right.
That kind of thing. But we are progressing the way we should as a society, getting better to all humans.
May that only ever continue.
Right, exactly. And I don't want to turn this political, but at what point do we stop being offended because there's an attraction at Disney World that has a woman being sold to pirates in the 1860s?
Yeah, I mean, so again, I think that's a topic that we could actually go down a rabbit hole with, because if you think about it, that's also going to, I mean, that was the main impetus for the change to Splash Mountain.
Yep, and we'll talk about that one here in a little bit too.
That was also, I just lost my thought. I was going someplace, but I don't know where. Oh, I do remember. It was also when the change to Splash Mountain was announced, there was also a little bit of an uproar and a wondering if they should change the stretching room ceiling scene in Haunted Mansion, because they felt it was going to be a trigger for some people. I think I think there's an appropriate time to make changes.
Right.
And then I think there's an oversensitive time to make changes.
Exactly.
Like, and I hope that doesn't come across as callous
No,
feeling, but
no, and I think I get where you're going, because like you think about the Haunted Mansion, which is actually the next thing we're going to talk about before we get there. Before we get there, though, like I could see saying, let's stop a hanging or a suicide or a murder in that first scene, because it might because we want this to be for everyone. And if somebody sees that and feels like they can't be a part of it, I'm all about making it more inclusive for them. Find another way to scare people in a way, or make it less obvious that there's a body dangling up there, that kind of thing. I completely get that. But I then go back to Pirates and I'm like, how does talking about history from the 1860s make the ride less inclusive?
well, and not only that, but I mean, and I don't know if it's over romanticized or over glamorized. Pirates were not good people.
No,
They did not set out to be role models of any sort
No.
or any imagination, but they did what they had to do.
yeah,
And excuse me, but there's been a lot in human history that we should be very ashamed of, and
Yeah.
we need to have it kept aware.
yeah, but on I'm going to play devil's advocate to myself here too. Based on what you just said, does celebrating it in a funny way at all make it to where maybe it comes across as, oh, maybe that's an okay thing to do? Like, is the way they're celebrating it in a happy-go-lucky way part of the reason why they decided to switch it, because it didn't show the horrors of pirates selling women to their crew?
It could have been, or it could have just been an attempt at, we understand this was wrong. It was wrong back then when it was happening.
Right.
In real, like for real. And we don't want to give that any life.
Right.
We acknowledge it happened, but we don't want to give it any life or glamorize it in any way, because it was not good.
Right. Yeah. Okay, we could probably, like you said, we could talk about that for hours and probably not come up to a solution.
No.
So let's talk about another change that they made from the early days of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
They added Jack Sparrow
They did.
in several places across all the different versions of that attraction.
And Barbossa.
And Barbossa, they added those two characters. What do we think about that? So the movie franchise was made based off of the attraction.
Yes.
The entire story of the first Pirates movie, you watch play out as you go through
Mm-hmm.
that attraction.
Mm-hmm.
You had the same thing before without Barbossa, without Jack Sparrow. You still followed the same story. So why did they have to add Jack Sparrow?
I don't know that they had to, but I think based on the popularity of the movies and the franchise that developed off of that, I think it was an audience grab. I think it was a come right on this attraction that may not be as relevant as it once was, and see Jack Sparrow.
Right.
Because we've got him in animatronic form now. We've got Barbossa. So you can sort of like kids that didn't see the attraction before the movies came out and are fans of the movies, they can go on that attraction now and say, oh,
Mhm.
hey, I recognize him.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It does maybe reach out to that younger audience that would just see the old pirates
Be like,
as
who are
kind
these
of
people?
dated, and probably lots of the kids that go to Disney for the first time now would go on the attraction without Jack Sparrow, think the movie came first, and be like, why did they take out the
Right.
main character from the movie?
Right.
Because everything else Disney builds right now is based around movie.
Right.
Everything they build is a movie first, versus back in the day, it was an attraction that turned into a movie.
Right.
So that's interesting. I think with Pirates, I think they've done a good job balancing that nostalgia of the attraction with modernizing it, keeping it more up to date, keeping the changes that they make there don't rile people up like some other changes that we're going to talk about.
Right. And I think the addition of Barbossa and Jack Sparrow, I think it was an enhancement that didn't really make a difference one way or the other for me.
Right.
I mean,
It's still the same story.
it's the same story and everything. I will admit they did a fantastic job on the Jack Sparrow animatronics.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really make a difference for me one way or the other, whether he's there or not.
Right. Okay. So let's move on because, again, I think if we don't move on, we're going to be a 4-hour episode before this is done. Because I think as we go through, we're going to have lots of different opinions and that kind of thing. And I know you're going to have an opinion about this next one.
Okay.
So let's talk Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
So there's a couple of changes that have happened there, but Haunted Mansion debuted in 1969, and it remains one of the most iconic Disney attractions. It's a unique combination of eerie ambiance and humor, make it a fan favorite. So here's some of the updates that they've made. In Disneyland, they do the seasonal overlay with Nightmare Before Christmas, and then they also recently in the Disney World version added the Hatbox Ghost. Let's talk first about seasonal overlays.
Okay.
I know you have an opinion on that, so I want you to share it.
Okay. I will ask our listeners to keep in mind that I am not a fan of Nightmare Before Christmas. I've seen it once all the way through, and that's all I can handle. It's fine for people that love it. It does too much. It's asking for too much. It's trying to be too much, in my opinion. So what is the purpose, I guess, of taking a perfectly lovely attraction like the Haunted Mansion, that, as you just said, is one of the most iconic attractions in any Disney park, shutting it down for a month to put all the crap all over it, running through the holiday season, then taking another month away from it to shut it down and take all the crap down. Like, I've not been to Disneyland yet, but I tell you, when we go for the first time, I don't want to go during the holidays because I don't want to have to see that Haunted Mansion for the first time with that crap.
Right. Do they change the music? Do they play Nightmare Before Christmas music when they do the overlay?
They do.
That would that would make me want to vomit.
Yeah. So listeners will ask if you have seen the overlay of Nightmare Before Christmas in the Disneyland Haunted Mansion. Tell us what's so freaking fabulous about it.
Or if you liked it or not.
Right.
Did you think it was a good ad? Or yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah, that's one of those attractions. I know what I'm getting when I go into it, and I want to get what I'm expecting to get out of it.
Yeah.
And hearing the Nightmare Before Christmas music, as much as I like that music, that ride is not a Halloween ride.
It has nothing to do with Halloween.
Right. So by throwing the Nightmare Before Christmas stuff on it, it makes it a Halloween attraction.
Right.
It takes away from what it's supposed to be.
Well, and the beautiful thing about that attraction, it is a timeless attraction.
Right.
There's no season to it. There's no holiday. There's no anything, any other time of the year, or any other Disney park for that matter. When you have Phantom Manor in Paris, you have a different iteration in Tokyo. And then, of course, there's the one in Florida, which doesn't get an overlay, thank goodness.
Right. Don't get any ideas, Disney.
No. But just leave it be. There's some things that you don't need to do that to. I promise.
Yeah. Or if you're going to do an overlay on the Disney World one, just put the Grim Grinning Ghosts in Santa hats. That's all you need to do. That's it. Make it holiday. Just put the Grinning Ghosts in Santa hats. So let's then move on to the addition of the Hatbox Ghost in Florida. Good ad, bad ad, meh ad.
I think it was a good ad because I think he was missed.
Okay. I could get behind that.
And he's fabulous. Where he's at in the attraction is a little weird because he's just right at the end of that hallway.
Right.
And it's just like, oh.
It's before you've met any other ghosts.
Right. So it's like, is that what do you call him?
The narrator?
The ghost host.
Oh,
yes.
Right.
So is he the ghost host? Is that what's supposed to be the natural inclination of this is your ghost host and his head is in a box and who is this and what are we doing?
Right. Why? It breaks up the story a little bit.
Does.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's really cool. The tech behind it is cool. I'm glad they added it. I almost wish they would have added it. I'm trying to think of where it is in the Disneyland attraction. I think it's in the attic.
With Constance.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense.
It does. And I wonder if in the Disney World attraction there's not enough room there or not enough structural support up there to do what they would need to do with that animatronic. So they're probably limited in where they could put it. But even maybe putting him right next to the guard with the dog, the groundskeeper,
yeah,
the gravedigger, putting the Hatbox Ghost right next to him, so that would make the dog shivering and shaking because he could see a ghost.
right.
It would flow with the story better, I think.
Right,
But
and the gravedigger would be looking around because he can't see him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's cool ad. I'm glad they added it. It's just a weird place to put it.
Yeah.
Didn't ruin the ride. Again, like we were talking about with the previous one, it's not going to take away from my enjoyment.
No.
Every time I'm on it, I'm going to be like, they should have put that somewhere else, but then I'm going to move on.
And last time we were there, didn't we notice there was some other stuff like in the ballroom that we hadn't noticed before that they changed, like some of the set pieces and things that looked a little bit different than what they did
think
before?
we did say that, and I wonder if it just they cleaned them up or refreshed them a little bit.
Could be. I don't know.
Because I think there's only so much they can do with that set dressing with the way they do the Pepper's Ghost effect.
Yeah.
Because they can't probably move that around very easily.
No.
So, yeah, I agree. And those, like, little cosmetic changes like that, I'm always going to be in favor of. Because if they're making the cosmetic changes and updating it a little bit and adding a Hatbox Ghost or adding a little thing here and there, that tells you that attraction's going to be around.
Mm-hmm.
They're not thinking about replacing it. It's when they, like, we're going to talk about Splash next. For 2 years, you started to notice the degradation of Splash.
Yes.
Before they even announced that they were going to switch it to something else.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the boats started leaking. They, like, all of these things, the maintenance kind of went down. So as Disney fans, were like, something's up.
Yep.
Something's up.
Yep.
And so it's just interesting. Like, so minimum maintenance and adding little things and doing cosmetic changes, I'm all about.
Yep.
Okay, anything else from Haunted Mansion that you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's talk Splash Mountain.
Okay.
Also known as Tiana's Bayou Adventure.
Yes.
Which is now open in both Disney World and Disneyland.
Yes.
The Splash Mountain opened in 1989 and was themed around the controversial film Song of the South, showcasing characters like Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear.
Mm-hmm.
So again, let's start this kind of in the same place we started Pirates. Did they need to make that change? Not asking how good the change was, but did they need to make the change?
I think they did for the simple reason that it started to feel like the ride was not relevant anymore because the movie is not available for people to watch. So there's no connection between what you're sitting at home watching on Disney Plus and an attraction that you walk by saying, what is that? I don't understand.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense if you don't know the story.
Yeah, it's just, what's this Brer mean? What's this?
Right.
Like, you don't get it unless you know about the Song of the South movie,
right,
which you can only get in, like, Japan.
Right.
It's weird. I've never seen it. I would like to sometime, but just for those that don't know, it is basically a movie about slavery.
Yes.
And
that's portrayed not the most accurate way possible.
Right. And what I think, like, part of the reason they don't show that anymore is it's one of the few times I will give Walt a little bit of a hard time, because he reached out and asked the Black community, how can I do this and make it to where it's not offensive? And they told him, and then he went and made it offensive anyway.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is just Walt saying, I know what's going to sell. And what you're telling me is not going to sell, so I'm going to do what I need to do. And again, Walt, I think everything I've read about the man is fantastic human.
But I think that's what you just said is it. He was a human.
Right.
Like, he's not
infallible.
No.
Right.
And when he was at his peak, times were very, very different.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to excuse bad behavior, because it wasn't. it shouldn't have done.
Yeah, he was born, what, 1902?
1901.
1901.
Mhm.
So he was less than 50 years past the end of slavery when he was born, because that Civil War was 1860s.
Yeah, and Emancipation Proclamation was 1864.
Right. So he was less than 50 years post slavery in the South.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of still really raw wounds. There were still a lot of people that didn't necessarily agree with how that all ended up. Heck, there's probably still people that don't agree with how that ended up. But again, we're not going to turn this into a politics podcast.
No.
But I think that's important to note too, is how he grew up, where he grew up. He grew up in basically what was a slave state.
Mm-hmm.
He spent time in Illinois, but then he was in Missouri, and then he was in Kansas City, Missouri. So he had a lot of that where I do believe Missouri was a slave state.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas was not, but Missouri was. And so he had 50 years removed from that. Like, that's what's filling his brain. So again, we're progressing the way we should as a society.
Right.
Sometimes that's painful, but we're progressing. I think Walt, you saw him progress through his entire life and career as well.
Absolutely.
So I think that's important to know. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what they changed it to.
Okay.
They took Splash and made it Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which is a story after the movie
of Princess and the Frog.
Of Princess and the Frog, where basically the storyline of the new Splash is that she is throwing a big party. Mm-hmm. She's looking for ingredients, and she's looking for a band to play at her party. And that's the adventure that you go on. What do we think of what they changed it to?
I think it's fine.
Okay. That's it?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, technologically speaking, it's phenomenal. Like, everything I've seen on it, the animatronics, the use of screens, which go back and listen to our screens episode about that, but all of that kind of stuff is done the way that I think that it should be done. Do I think it needed to have its own story invented rather than just retelling the movie?
Right.
The original movie, Princess and the Frog? I don't know about that, because I don't know, like, if you sit and watch Princess and the Frog, is it going to be a continuation of the story when you go and get on the attraction, or is it something that you have to get used to all over again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to agree. Tiana needed an attraction.
She did, absolutely.
I think the ride-throughs that I've watched, I think, don't do that attraction justice.
Mm-hmm.
I am looking forward to getting on that attraction when we're there and just seeing for myself. So next season, we'll report back for sure on what we think of that attraction once we've been on it. But I think, for me, like, you look around Walt Disney World, around Disneyland, where else, two things, where else is there really truly Americana culture represented?
Mm-hmm.
And where is there Black culture represented?
I mean, fair point.
Yeah. So it was time for them,
100%.
again, because one of their things is we want it to be a park for everyone.
Right.
So now little girls can go on that attraction and see somebody that looks like them.
100%. I'm not saying that it didn't need to happen. I just don't understand
the story
that they chose to tell with the attraction versus just retelling the movie.
Right. And I should research a little bit on why they chose to do that. Maybe they thought the story itself and the evil was too evil. Well, or they were trying to make it more of an uplifting attraction versus a scary attraction.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because the first time I saw that movie, I'm like, this is dark.
Right.
And this is a kid's movie. This is dark with all the voodoo and all of that. So I get that part of it. And now it is timeless and it's appropriate and it's got like a politically correct message thrown in about food and where things come
sustainability
from. Sustainability. It's got all of that stuff without being too preachy.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah,
right.
blah. But yeah.
And the original song they wrote for it is actually a pretty catchy tune.
Yes, it is.
The special, you are the special spice. The name of the song is Special Spice, but it's basically you are the special spice that brings everything together, which, again, every attraction Disney has. Like, you look at the Epcot fireworks, you look at the Magic Kingdom fireworks, you look at sort of what's the story revolving around, it's community.
Yes.
It's about you being a part of a community and being part of something bigger. And that's so much what Disney stands for, I think. It's not their corporate slogan, obviously, but like, if companies live their values and show their values in that way,
yes,
that's Disney's values.
Yes, 100%. And I'm just so glad that Mama Odie is there.
Yes. And her animatronic looks amazing. Phenomenal.
Yes.
Looks amazing.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to skip over one of them on the list just because we've not seen it. Well, let's talk about it for 2 seconds.
Okay.
They took out Tower of Terror in Disneyland and made it Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout.
Yes.
What do we think?
I don't like it.
I don't know that I do either.
I think where it's located, I think it fits because it's kind of close to Marvel Universe or whatever, Marvel Academy, or I don't know what they call it because we haven't been there.
Right.
But I think it's in that area of the park, and so I think it fits.
Probably better than Tower of Terror would have.
Yes. I think if they were to try and do that in Florida, however, there would be a massive uprising.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does fit so well where it's at in the park on Hollywood Boulevard.
Right.
And it's just got that whole, like, it's an individual thing now in Florida.
Right.
There's no other one like it.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know that I would go on it. When we go to California, I don't know that I'll go on it.
You like Tower of Terror.
I do, but I don't necessarily care for Guardians of the Galaxy.
You love the Guardians ride in Epcot.
Because it was a kick-ass roller coaster.
Right. And good music. And I think that's
Absolutely.
I think that comes with the Mission Breakout as well. Because I think there's different songs that you hear in that one as well.
Okay,
so
whatever. But
again, we don't know till we've been on it. I've never been on it. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see. But yeah, that's one of those things where I get to the way you said that. I was going to be staunch no. Leave it as the Haunted Mansion. That's the way Joe Rohde built it. That's the way he wanted it.
Tower of Terror?
Yeah. What did I say?
Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, I meant Tower of Terror. Sorry. I think I was going to start out as a staunch no, don't change it. But the way you said it fits in the park better as the re-theme makes me be, okay, that's fine.
And I need to correct myself. There is a Tower of Terror in Paris.
Is there?
Yes.
Okay.
Theron worked on it.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. Okay. So let's move over to Epcot.
Okay.
So we're not going to talk necessarily about, first, we're not going to talk necessarily about an attraction.
Okay.
So let's talk about changing Future World to World Celebration, Discovery, and Nature. So turning Future World into 3 separate worlds, doing 3 separate things.
Okay.
So Epcot was originally focused on showcasing innovation, technology, and cultural exchange. Edutainment. Right?
Right.
That's what Epcot was. So over the last 5 years or so, Disney's reimagined Epcot's Future World, splitting into themed neighborhoods and adding new attractions like Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. They say Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. That's not part of the upfront there. The updates seek to balance Walt Disney's vision of Epcot as a place of education with Disney storytelling. So you have seen both Future World and you've been there for the 3 neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Good change, bad change, meh change.
Appropriate change for the way that Disney is taking their parks.
Tell me more.
Like, if you just say Future World, that didn't really fit anymore because so much of the stuff was a little bit dated.
Right.
So it wasn't the future anymore. When you have specific neighborhoods of world nature, and you can go and see the Living Seas with Nemo and friends, you can go see Living with the Land, You can go see some of that other stuff that's over there. And then you can go into World Discovery and go on Mission Space and Cosmic Rewind, some of the more futuristic stuff. And then you have classic Epcot right down the middle. I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I liked it more than I thought I would when we were there. And there were still a lot of construction walls up when we were there. So this time there's fewer construction walls, so we'll see.
And Celebration Gardens is fantastic.
Right.
And the new music is just, I mean, it touches my soul in a certain way.
And putting that Walt statue in, fantastic. Some of those additions were so good. But to do that, they had to pull things away like the Fountain of Nations. Is that what it was called? Mm-hmm. I know that was one of your favorite things in Epcot.
It was.
Have you made peace with that? Or is it still something you're like, that was stupid. I wish they hadn't done that.
No, I am okay with it because of the tribute that they put into Walt. Mm-hmm. And his statue. So I'm okay with it.
And they left playful water.
They did.
With the Moana attraction.
Yes.
So you can still get in and play with water and see water and interact with it, and it interacts with you, which I think, again, they're moving away from, I'm going to slightly alter what our resource base is. They said away from Walt's vision. I'm going to say it's moved away from Roy's vision, the original Imagineers vision of what Epcot was going to be, because everybody knows Walt's vision was truly a community, a prototype community that was run like a city. That was his Florida project. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Spaceship Earth. It wasn't, I'm going to lose my Disney card because my mind just went blank. The back of the park, the
World Showcase?
Yeah, World Showcase. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Just forgot the word showcase. And I'm like, what is it? But that wasn't Walt's vision. I think that was when Walt passed, nobody had the wherewithal to even know where to begin on building a city. And they're like, but we need more. We need another gate in Florida. Mm-hmm. We need another reason to bring people here. And so let's build this instead and make it all about, because Walt was also big into that edutainment and that kind of thing. So I think they definitely did that. And I really don't know where I was going with that statement or that point. But I think what I'm really saying is, like, the changes that they've made to Epcot, again, I think you and I both walked into it this last February expecting to hate it. Mm-hmm. But where they put Guardians made sense. Now, it's changing the way the park is done. It's making it not the Epcot we've known and loved the whole time. Mm-hmm. They're making it more of a rides park versus that true edutainment kind of thing. But I think they're also striking a really good balance by putting Moana in, by leaving the aquarium in, by some of those things, like putting Space 220 as a restaurant, like those kind of things. Like in World Discovery, you get to go eat in space. Those are kind of cool things. It's times when you step back away from the gut reaction of they're changing something that I love, you start seeing the benefit of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Right?
To a point.
Okay. I'm going to use that as a segue into our next talking point.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the Maelstrom.
Thank you.
So they changed Maelstrom to Frozen Ever After. So originally, the Maelstrom was a Norway pavilion boat ride featuring Norse mythology and Norwegian landscapes, adding a unique cultural touch, which is what World Showcase is all about. They changed it in 2016 to Frozen Ever After, which is a ride that brings the story of Frozen to life. So let's talk a little bit before I get into your snark about why you don't like that attraction. Let's talk a little bit about the trade-off between cultural authenticity and popularity of a movie. Because before I open the mic to you, they did that to make it more of a people eater attraction, because it went from something with absolutely no wait hardly ever to something that now routinely has a 70 to 80 minute wait that people gladly stand in line for, and it's basically the same attraction.
It is the same attraction.
Just
only without the trolls and the polar bears.
Right. It has fictional characters, different fictional characters than the ones that probably belong in the Norway pavilion.
Right.
So where's that trade-off? When is that trade-off okay? When is it not? We know you've talked about this ad nauseum. We know it's not okay for you for the Maelstrom. When is that okay?
So I think there is a good balance and I think Disney has learned a lot from the uprising that has come since they've made the change to Maelstrom. And when they put Ratatouille, Remy's
Ratatouille
adventure, whatever, the mouse thing, rat thing, in France, I don't think there was ever any semblance of a representation of this is what a rat's life in France is. This is a story. You're all familiar with this story. It's a great movie. This is the attraction that we've built.
And it belongs in the country.
It does. And people may say, well, yes, Frozen belongs in Norway because that's where it takes place. Okay, Arendelle is a fictional place.
Right.
We've talked about that before. But I think when they took that place, when they switched out Maelstrom for Frozen Ever After, I think it was a hype ploy, and I think it did a big disservice to the actual point of World Showcase.
I tend to agree, because it takes away, like what I was talking about, the cultural authenticity in World Showcase is important.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they bring in people from the countries to work those pavilions. You go to Japan, you're talking to Japanese people. You go to France, you're speaking to French people. You go to Norway, you're speaking to Norwegian people. But then you have that attraction that pulls you out of that cultural authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if there's ever any regret from the Imagineers about that change. Like, would there have been room enough in that pavilion to like build an attraction of its own?
And there's not, and that's the problem. Because that pavilion is small. And that attraction is big.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. So, we could talk. I'm trying to think if there's a way I can increase this debate, but I'm with you on this one. Moving it away from Norway, I hate it.
Because it's not like the Maelstrom kind of covered all of like Norwegian history, past, present, and future.
Right.
So like it went from the mythology and the Vikings and all of this kind of stuff to what life was actually like, to even some of the more not so great parts of it, like the underwater drilling for oil and that kind of thing that's happening, whatever. So it covered the whole thing, and it didn't fantasize anything, and it didn't glorify anything. It was just, this is how it is. This is the people of Norway.
Right.
And now let's talk about how snow doesn't really bother anybody.
Right.
Well, excuse me, but it does.
Right. Yeah, I want to go on the attraction just because I was never on the Maelstrom. So I want to see the track layout.
It's the same.
I know, but I haven't ever been on it. So I want to see the track layout. I want to be on the attraction. I want to see what the hype is. Who knows? I may fall in love with it after I'm on it, but I'll always and forever hold true to it is not culturally appropriate. Okay. So staying in Epcot for the last one that I want to talk about, because I know, again, I'm picking ones that I know you have opinions about.
Okay.
Let's talk about Spaceship Earth.
Okay.
So Spaceship Earth is a attraction. I don't know when it was built. It was original to the park, right? So that was 81 when that one was built. And it's an attraction that goes through the history of communication. And it's always been an attraction about the history of communication.
Yes.
Over time, they've changed it from the original Jeremy Irons,
Walter
Cronkite narration to Jeremy Irons to now Dame Judi Dench is the current narrator. And they're talking about potentially changing the narration and some of the not track layout, but some of the ride again. When they made the most recent change from Jeremy Irons to Dame Judi Dench, goodness gracious, English is hard. But they also took away when you're going backwards after you reach the top and you see Spaceship Earth and you start in your vehicle, you start going back down to Earth. There used to be a lot of really cool things to look at, were there other animatronics?
Yes.
So there were more animatronics. It was just a continuation of the story that kept you in it. And when they moved it to the current version, they put screens in the back of the seat for you to talk about how you travel, whether it's how you work, vacation, whatever. So you're playing with a screen during the descent back where it's just a whole bunch of stars that you see, which is a cool effect. Don't get me wrong. It's a cool effect. But talk to me a little bit, because I know you've been on both versions. I was never on the previous one. This is the only one I've known. So talk to me a little bit about the change, and if I know you're not okay with the change, but why you're not okay with the change.
So I'm not okay with the change. The Jeremy Irons version was more complete and more robust and more, I want to say, forward facing, if that makes sense, because like as you were coming back down, there was the continuation of the story, like you said, but there was also like different light patterns and different music and different effects. And it just kind of left you with a really good feeling and a really positive, like, let's see where this takes us into the future. Now it feels very, very lazy. In recent years, it's been more often than not that the picture that they take of you at the beginning of the ride doesn't actually show up your face.
Right.
Secondly, it's kind of my whole argument with screens again. Like, it just comes off as lazy if they're going to just make you look at a screen versus having all of that other stuff to pull your focus and keep immersed. Because I'm sorry, a screen does not immerse me when it's in the back of the seat and I have to be pushing buttons.
Right, it actually pulls you out of the immersion.
100%. I just find it lazy.
Right. I've always thought that when they turn you around and start having you go backwards down the hill, I've always felt like that the end of the ride, not the attraction, like I'm talking about the ride track now, the end of the ride is when you get to the top and you see Spaceship Earth. They turn you around and you start going back down. The end of the ride was when you saw the big blue marble. Mm-hmm. And other than that, it's just getting you to the unload area.
Right.
That's they're air quotes wasting your time getting you to the unload area versus giving you more story.
Mm-hmm.
Like how easy, if they were going to redo that from, I don't know what it was before, but how easy would it have been to talk about the future of communication? Mm-hmm. But again, Disney has to be careful with that because then they fall prey to the carousel of progress problem.
Right.
Where their version of the future from a technology perspective is 25 years ago.
Right.
And
don't get me wrong, she needs an update.
Right.
In a bad way.
Yes.
But in saying that, I hope they do so respectfully.
Right.
And I hope they do so in a tradition that Disney attractions should be updated.
Right.
And not lazy and not quick and not throwing some stupid IP at it.
Right. Don't, like, the first part of that ride, make it work better, clean it up, make the smells work better, all of that kind of stuff. But don't take...
The poor unknown Egyptian pounding papyrus actually pound the papyrus
right.
and not have his damper thing like 6 inches off the paper and not doing anything anymore.
So it used to touch the paper?
Yes.
Really?
And that tick, tick, tick sound that you hear, it used to line up and it used to look like that was actually making that noise.
Really?
Yes.
I've never seen it touch.
But he's never had the bandage around his elbow either until recently. So she needs some updates.
Right.
But yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, she's prettiest girl in school needs some TLC,
She does.
but don't F it up.
The right kind of attention.
Right. Don't F it up.
Yes.
I 100% agree. So that's all the things that were on my list. Candice, what else am I forgetting about? Oh, there's one other one that you and I were never on the original version that is a hot button topic for Disney fans. Figment.
Yes. Journey into Imagination.
Yes. So we really, I don't feel like we can talk about that one. It's an okay attraction. I like it.
All I've heard is the one with Dreamfinder was so much better.
Yeah, because it didn't have what's his bucket in the moon.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
And I think he's funny and hilarious, and I like the attraction other than his face in the moon, which is cringy.
I don't understand.
Right.
But maybe we're not supposed to.
Maybe we're not supposed to. And honestly, my thought process on that is Figment deserves more. If he's going to be the mascot of your park, give him more.
Yeah.
Because the mascot of the park has an attraction that most people just choose to walk by.
Mm-hmm.
That's rough.
Yeah, it is.
That's rough.
Poor little Figment.
Poor little Figment. Anything else change-wise that you... Oh, yes. I have opinions about Test Track.
I know that you do, so why don't you share those?
So originally, Test Track, it's always been sponsored by Chevy, right?
Yes.
I think so.
I think so.
So Test Track is an attraction that is sponsored by Chevy. If it wasn't before, it is now.
Yep.
The original iteration of that attraction was you were going through as a test dummy. So as you walked through the queue line, you were in this big warehouse, like a Chevy manufacturing plant where they were building cars, and they were showing you all the different parts and that kind of thing that you went through. And then you went through all the rigmarole of a test. You were testing the car before the safety features of the car before it went out to the customer. So you have the sudden stops, you have the swerves. How does it do in heat? How does it do in cold? How does it do on wet? How does it do running into a brick wall? Those kind of things are all things that were built into that attraction. And then they went and updated it because, again, I think Chevy wanted them to, because it was probably to them, it was a little dated.
Mm-hmm. Which it was.
And they wanted to show off kind of the technology that was coming into cars, because Chevy's using it as an advertisement. And they should. They're putting the money into it. They have the right to do that. They changed it to where you go through and you design a car on a kiosk while you're in the queue. So again, I don't mind that. It takes your mind off of the fact that you're standing in a line, because you go to 2 or 3 different places, and then you build your car, and then you go stand in line and you scan in so it can tell you how your car performs. But it's talking more about gas mileage. It's talking about acceleration. It's talking about sort of when it was built was the things that were important to cars then,
right, versus
the safety features of the crash test. But they went and they made it too Tron-like. Mm-hmm. It has a whole bunch of neon. It doesn't feel like it's as good of an attraction. So now it's gotten to the point of where it used to be kind of fun and something different. Now it feels like the most thrilling part of the ride is something you do on the interstate every day.
At lower speeds than what you're actually on the interstate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you get up to like 66 miles an hour as tops on the track.
Yeah.
So I think, and I say now, it's closed for refurb right now because Chevy's redoing it again. And I'm really hopeful that when they redo it, they get back to a better story. Mm-hmm. Versus, because the story of the test track was just that. All the way through it, you were testing a vehicle. Mm-hmm. You saw the tools to build. You saw, like, you built the car, as you went through the queue, you built all the car, and then you were in a true test track. Whereas after that, it was more like, okay, this is kind of dumb. They tried to turn it into a dark ride. It was never a dark ride before. So I hope when they redo it this time that they maybe do a little bit better cohesive story and try and find ways to make it just a touch more thrilling. And I almost hope they enclose the entire thing.
That would be good, so it doesn't have to shut down every time there's a drop of rain.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the number of times I've wanted to go on that and it's been closed because of weather has been too damn high.
Yes.
But Right in its current iteration before they closed it, it became one of those things I would just walk by.
Yeah.
I didn't need to go on it.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
agree.
And that's not, I don't think, like, that's me not saying nostalgia. I don't think. That's me saying they objectively made it a worse attraction.
100%.
Like, if they had updated it to a better story, I would have been okay with it. Because I don't mind changes to the attractions. Like, don't take my favorite things away. Like, I want them to update the last scene of Carousel of Progress to be looking 20 years into the future. But that also makes it hard. But I don't want them to take it away. Spaceship Earth, I want them to update some things. I don't want them to take the 1960s space stuff out. That's where my nostalgia kicks in, is don't remove it, enhance it.
Right.
And with Test Track, they removed and made worse.
Right.
So hopefully they're going to take a huge leap forward this time and do better.
We'll see.
Yep. And just last thing, we're going to wrap up here in just 2 minutes. Going back to Carousel of Progress for just a minute. They update the last scene every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
The last update they did, they just put more modern clothes on still 25 years ago technology. I wonder if part of the reason they don't update that final scene again to be looking more 20 years into the future is because of the time gap between the first 3 rooms and the 4th room.
I think so.
Because all of a sudden you go from 1950s to 2050.
Yeah, it's like how
did we just skip 100 years?
Right.
Versus 1950 to when it was built, it was into the 1990s.
Yes.
And so skipping that every 40 years was about what it was. Now it would be skipping 100 years.
Right.
So at this point, they almost have to leave it as is and just make sure it works good for the nostalgia. But that doesn't belong in Tomorrowland.
But it does. Because that's still Walt's Tomorrow.
Let's call it Walt's Tomorrowland then.
I agree. Because you have...
Oh my God, we should get paid for that.
We should.
That would take everything that people complain about in that land and all of just, period, make it not a concern anymore.
Right.
If you call it Walt's Tomorrowland,
mm-hmm.
you walk into it knowing that it's going to be the things that Walt thought was going to be cool.
Right.
And take over the world.
You have the People Mover.
Right.
Which he thought of. You have his model of Progress City on the People Mover.
Yep.
That's a connection to Walt. You have Carousel of Progress. Big connection to Walt.
Yep.
I think they should do it.
Yeah. But the Buzz Lightyear attraction is from a movie 25, 30 years old now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you don't want to make it like History World or anything like that, but calling it Walt's Tomorrowland solves a lot of problems that Disney has with Tomorrowland.
Mm-hmm.
And all they would have to do is add Walt in Walt's script above the sign.
Mm-hmm.
And change their brochures. We are geniuses, Candice.
Yes, we are.
Geniuses.
Yes. TM.
So I want all of our listeners to come out to our social media and tell Candice and I how smart we are because of that idea. Just come bolster our egos a little bit and tell us how genius we are. I would appreciate that. And I think that's our push, to come out to our socials, interact with us. We want to hear from you. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Reddit. Any of those places, come find us. We're not super active on Reddit. I don't post a lot of new stuff there, but we're pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. Come out there, interact with us, leave comments on your favorite podcast platforms. Come out to Spotify. That's where we host, and leave your comments there. That helps us get discovered by other people and that kind of thing. And again, last plug, share. Our best way of sharing the fun that we have is by you sharing with your friends that may be also Disney fans, mm-hmm. that we don't know, that we can't necessarily reach out to, because we're small enough that we're not going to get into any major algorithms and start getting thousands of views. But I think if you start sharing, that will help us grow, and we're going to keep doing this, but we'd love to have a bigger audience too. So help us out. And I think with that, that's it. I want all of you to remember there is always a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And we'll see you real soon.